Okay. Okay, so here's going to be my example. On here, I have, this was the initial. Okay, just save that. This was the initial, and it's from the BC, the type BC. So when you pass information to this, it it will use this information. Okay, it will analyze if this is the key of the primary key of the business view that you're associated with the form. If it is, and this option is selected, which it is by default, it will take the business columns and it will go to the database and grab all of the data associated with that primary key. Automatically, the runtime does that. If now in the example I'm going to show, okay, I'm going to do an add, not a select, not an update. So when you do an add and you want to let's say I want to default some of these fields, but I don't want the default to come from this application. I'm not defaulting it with this application. I'm defaulting it with the caller is going to pass the information that it wants to default into the application. That's what I'm going to do now. So I have two choices for that. And the goal of this, okay, is to explain the difference between using a type BC or a business column in a data structure versus a DI, a data dictionary item in a data structure, and the way the two behave. Okay, the difference between the two behaviors. So on this screen, I'm going to add first. I'm going to add from the available objects. Available objects is going to be from the business view. So I'm going to add, for example, the unit of measure for dimension. Okay. Now the unit of measure of the dimension from the BC has been added to my data structure. When I pass information to that BC, the way that the runtime works, okay, is when the dialog becomes initialized, okay, and the BC columns load, okay, whatever source of the data is. So it could be that you're passing the BC to the form, or the BC is retrieved from the database. But at some point, those BC variables get populated. The runtime will then take the BC variables, okay, and pass them to the related form control, if there is one. If there's none, it doesn't do anything. In this case, there is one. You see it's blue here. So in this one, this form control is directly linked to this BC column in this table. So it's directly linked. So the flow of information will go from BC to FC, provided that the BC is populated. So if I go over here now and I populate, I'm going to insert an add button. Okay. On my add, I'm going to default this. I'm going to say I'm going to tell the calling the application that I'm calling to default that unit of measure to box all the time. Default it. If there's no programming in here in this form to default to a box. It's just this form is saying pass a box to the data structure. Okay. Now because it's a BC type BC, when I run this and I do an add, hang on, I gotta probably have to hang on. I'm gonna pause. Hang on. Okay, so in here,
Yes.
in my select, because I just want to show you the association. That's what's more important.
Yes.
I'm passing box to that field.
Yes.
When I pass box to that field, it's going to come into this form. Okay, it's going to load into the business column field, and the runtime will then copy that business column field to the form control. So when I preview this, and I double click on this, the field gets automatically populated here with box.
Yeah.
I didn't program in this form here to set this field to anything. The runtime did it because I made my data structure a BC. So whatever I pass to the BC will copy to the BC. Whatever goes in the BC will copy to the FC.
Okay.
I didn't program that. The runtime's doing all that for me. If I do the same thing, okay, most of the time I'm never adding BC columns. Most of the time I'm not doing that. Most of the time the BCs they stay the primary key of the table. And if the primary key changes throughout the life cycle of the application, I come back over here to the program and I add whatever field was added to the primary key. I add that with the BC.
Okay.
It's the only time I personally am ever adding BCs. 99% of the time, I'm adding from the data dictionary, and I'm programmatically doing whatever I need to do in the other application. Myself, I'm programmatically doing it. I pass data and then from one form to another, and then I handle it in the calling application. I don't let the runtime do it for me. I do it. I have complete control over it. So this I'm going to delete now, the BC. I'm going to add this one here. Now I'm going to do the exact same call from here. So in here, it's the same thing. I'm going to put the same value, box. You're going to see now the difference in behavior is that the runtime is not going to do anything with that because it's not a BC. And the BC is not going to get copied to the FC. So the field here is not going to be populated with box. So what I would normally do is in the calling application, I would programmatically do it. I would say copy I would do that. Set the value of that field when this dialog opens, when the screen loads.
Yes.
Take the value that's in the form interconnect, which is the form interconnect is the data structure that's being passed to me.
Yes.
It's the field in the data structure. Take that value and put it in the FC. I'm doing it. I'm not letting the runtime do it.
Okay.
That's the difference between using a BC and a DI. DI you have to program.
So this one in this form, in the form, it's called the field interconnect.
Field interconnect. Form interconnect.
Form interconnect. But here.
Here it's called form interconnect. In the form that I'm programming with the data structure. This.
It's called.
No. The type of this, all of these are form interconnects.
Okay.
Whether it's a BC or a DI, they're all the variables that you see in here. They're form interconnects variables.
Okay.
So see here, I'm gonna have 3 form interconnect variables. This one and this one is type BC. This one is DI.
So all these variables form interconnect are identical to the data structure.
That's it. This is the data structure. This is how you work with it programmatically. So you define it over here in the data structure. But then when you want to use the values that are passed in, you refer to them with that variable. The runtime manages putting them in these variables, and then you can work with them. You could set them, you could use them, you could if them, you can do whatever you want with them. But the values that you pass are going to be in these fields. Okay, so that is the difference between the BC and the DI. Okay, so, and again, most of the time, most of the time, my goal in passing this thing is not necessarily just a default. I want to pass some information that I'm going to use in a programmatic way.
Yes.
So I usually pass 99.99% of the time I pass DI.
So the form interconnect is the data structure.
Form interconnect is the data structure.
Always.
Always.
Okay.
Always. It's how you work with the data structure that's being passed to you.
Okay.
It's form interconnect variables.
And we can access the form interconnect from the caller to the called one, from both sides.
You can no, the form interconnect variables are available to you in the form in which the data structure is defined.
Yeah.
So the data structure is defined here in this form.
Ah, okay, got it.
I have form interconnect variables that represent this in this form and that form only.
Okay, so that form.
The how you see it from the outside is just when you call the application. That's it.
Okay.
When I make a call to the application through a what it's called, this is called here a form interconnect, right?
Yeah.
So that when I use a form interconnect, it goes like it looks like this.
Yeah.
And I can pass. This is what I see
Okay.
from the outside.
Yeah.
But I don't have like the form interconnect variable I see here is represents the data structure of this form.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Stop that.